Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News Extra, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya studios. These are our top stories. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman sits down with President Trump at the White House and says the investment into the US will increase to $1 trillion, plus praises Trump's work on world peace. Defense deals will also be on the table as Trump confirms the US will sell F-35s to Saudi Arabia, calling them a great ally. And Epstein survivors speak out ahead of a vote to release the files. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is in Washington today, meeting US President Donald Trump at the White House. During a press conference in the Oval Office, the Crown Prince said investment to the US will increase to $1 trillion and praised Trump's work on world peace. To discuss this and all of today's stories, I'm joined by Managing Director of This.Is.Dubai, Michael Jabri Pickett, and columnist and correspondent Gemma White. Gemma and Michael, thank you so much for joining me. A lot happening today. We know that Donald Trump, of course, met the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the White House today to much pomp and pageantry and fanfare, and it was all a pretty remarkable occasion. But President Trump has said this, Michael, is actually more than just a meeting. So how did you think it went?
I thought it was an opportunity for both to sort of remake their images a little bit. The Crown Prince, I think, wants to present himself as though he is something of a peacemaker. He was instrumental, for instance, in bringing about the ceasefire in Gaza. He's also been instrumental in helping Iran and the US speak more honestly in negotiations. Donald Trump, meanwhile, I think he's trying to own the narrative, at least take it back a little bit from where it's been. You know, a couple of weeks ago, the Democrats won in all of the elections that were important in the off-year election cycle that the U.S. had. There's also been, of course, the government shutdown. I think the president has stumbled a little bit when it's been talk about affordability. And I think the other big issue is that, of course, we've got the Epstein files, which is taking over a lot of the president's time. So it's an opportunity for Donald Trump to, again, claim back the narrative. And it's also a chance for the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to present himself as someone different, because it's been 7 years since he was last at the White House.
And Gemma, actually, we were talking a little bit earlier about this meeting between Donald Trump and the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the Oval Office, and you said it felt fresh. And when I watched it, it did feel like two close friends coming together, one who's putting Saudi first, one who's putting America first, but want to work together to make their countries better. And together they see that that is an important way to move forward.
Yeah, and the reason I think it felt fresh is because when I grew up, US relations and the Middle East, it dominated the headlines all the time for all the wrong reasons. It was sort of constantly negative. And the relationships weren't as strong as they are now. So to see this, to see them sitting there, you know, talking, you know, and all these new developments that have come from it, it felt like actual change could come from this meeting, and I think that's what I felt by fresh. You can feel that there is something moving that's going to take things forward.
And I feel like that is something that is really important for us to concentrate on. And another thing I want to bring to both of you and to yourself, Gemma and Michael, we have been talking about this. Mohammed bin Salman's last visit was Trump's first term. That was 7 years ago. And Saudi has changed dramatically within that time frame. Saudi's booming. We're seeing a whole different relationship when it comes to lots of different countries around the world. And I wonder how this huge transformation is reshaping things.
I think it's it's kind of like, you know, does the tail wag the dog? Does, you know, it's kind of this perpetual circle. They are reshaping, and thus they are being reshaped by this kind of perpetual motion that we're in at the moment. So yeah, a lot has happened in 7 years, not just in Saudi, but in the world, of course. They've seen so many changes domestically, you know, their position on the world stage as well, economically, politically. And at home, there's been a big focus on culture, creativity. We've seen these huge events, these big sporting events. We've seen concerts. We've seen, you know, women's rights, you know, being worked upon there as well. We're seeing tourism really coming to the fore, which I never thought I would see personally. We've got these mega project and the Vision 2030 project. So domestically, there is so much going on. Now, on the world stage as well, which I think is what's kind of most important as well, we are seeing Saudi step forward to become a bigger player, especially in sort of diplomacy and in roles as a mediator. And as you said, they have been instrumental in the region, brokering deals, brokering peace in Syria, Sudan, Gaza, Iran, and more. And there's a confidence there that they know the region. You know, this instead of foreign countries coming into the region and thinking they know what's best, this is a nation that is in the Middle East saying, hey, we know these people more than you do. Let us have a try.
And it's really interesting because if we talk about, and just pick up on what Gemma was saying, and we talk about the regional players and the influence Saudi has, I found it so interesting because obviously Donald Trump today was holding that Oval Office with the Saudi Crown Prince. That meeting, that discussion, it went on for a really long time. And even Donald Trump said, this is really transparent. I felt we were getting real transparency from both of the leaders. Yeah. But Trump was asked a question, and he said the Crown Prince asked to lift sanctions on Syria. Syria has made tremendous progress. And I think this really shows how this relationship is changing things when it comes to regional development in the Middle East, when it comes to lifting the sanctions on Syria. And also, it just seems that we keep on hearing about this normalizing of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia and momentum to that.
Yeah, to what Gemma said, I think it is fresh. And it is because I think neither side has to worry about foreign policy too much. You have Donald Trump, who's very transactional, certainly when it comes to his foreign policy negotiations. And that there's a transparency there that I think other world leaders can relate to. And from the Crown Prince's point of view, he understands the dynamics of the relationship. And so he knows that if he's going to go into the US and he's going to invest as much as $1 trillion, he knows he's going to be getting something in return from the president. The nice thing about what the Crown Prince has done, which hasn't happened before in Saudi Arabia, is that, and to your point where there's so much change, it's partly because one of the big points of emphasis is they're investing in the Saudi youth themselves. Traditionally, Saudis would go overseas for university. Now more and more are staying in country to be educated. They don't want to leave for 4 years and miss out on the transformational change that's happening. But getting back to Donald Trump and the Crown Prince, they have this understanding about how the relationship should work, and they're both comfortable working within the dynamic of that relationship.
And I find it quite fascinating, actually, when I had a look at the body language between the two men. It's very clear that they are both great friends. They've known each other for a long time. Yeah. And we do know that the Trump organization, which is not related to the US administration, but they also do a lot of deals in the Middle East. And of course, that is the Trump family. So there's a lot of ties to the Middle East when we have a look at the president and his family coming into the Middle East. But, you know, I wonder right now where this leaves us. So they're really good friends. We've seen loads of investment happening today. And I think to myself, are we going to see all of these deals come to fruition? Because that's always the big question.
I think the big question going into this was, you know, the 600 billion that was pledged previously, what an update on that. And they've gone even bigger, you know, here's your update. It's going to be even more. And as you see, I do think Trump is very comfortable dealing with the region, dealing with the key players in the region in ways that we haven't seen before with US presidents. But yeah, I think they've given the world what they wanted to see. I think they've given the US what it wants to see, and I think they've given Saudi what it wants to see. I can't see any losers here.
I also think that one of the reasons why a lot of these deals, when they were first announced 6 months ago about the $6 billion, I didn't think that that would happen. But now, or the $600 billion, excuse me. But now I think there's a different dynamic at play, because what Donald Trump is doing is he's not necessarily negotiating with the Crown Prince. He's introducing the Crown Prince to all the business leaders in America, and Saudi Arabia can then make those deals with American companies, which won't be beholden to whoever's in the White House.
And what's really interesting is they say that they're going to have this big black tie dinner tonight. Elon Musk is expected to be at that dinner. So is Tiger Woods. Cristiano Ronaldo has also gone with Mohammed bin Salman to the White House. Right. And tomorrow they're going to have that meeting, investment meeting, and we're going to see all the Wall Street executives there too. So you're absolutely right. Donald Trump is actually key to the networking that will be happening. So I think that's a really interesting point to make.
He's almost the linchpin, right? He's just bringing, much like a successful businessman would do, he's just bringing the parties together and then letting them negotiate whatever deals they need to.
Do you think that also ensures his legacy for when he's no longer in the White House?
I think it ensures that he'll have business opportunities once he leaves the White House.
Yeah. But I also think it's a really good idea, like you say, because sometimes when there's administration changes and things change in the US, knowing the company and knowing the top of it will really benefit Saudi Arabia. And I found it interesting Tiger Woods was going.
But he's played golf with Donald Trump.
Yes, indeed.
So there, and of course, the Saudis have invested heavily in the Live Tour. So there is, an understanding that golf is a big connector of different cultures.
I think what they're going to try and do is convince Tiger Woods to join Live, because he hasn't done that yet.
He has not.
You heard it here first. Anyway, we're going to move on now, and let's turn to military spending, which will be high on the agenda during today's meetings. Ahead of the highly anticipated summit, US President Donald Trump said he plans to sell US-made F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia as the two countries consider a potential multi-billion-dollar deal. Okay, so another thing we're going to talk about today is I found it really interesting. Before the Crown Prince had even arrived in the US, Donald Trump said, yes, F-35 jets, we're going to sell them to Saudi Arabia. Absolutely interesting turn of events. It's unprecedented and something the US has only done with its closest allies in the past, Gemma.
Yeah, it is unprecedented, absolutely. But it's not without historical context. So in 2010, Saudi bought 84 F-15s from the US. But that was obviously old technology, and the F-35s are what is called a fifth-generation stealth aircraft, much more advanced technology, and obviously the world, 15 years later, is in a different place. So if they do get these F-35 jets, which Trump has said, this is going to happen, this deal will go through, they'll be the second country in the region after Israel to operate the jet. Now, that is a kind of whole other story to unpack as well, to be honest with you. And it is a big deal because the US has historically been very cautious about who they share their technology with, particularly in this region. And obviously, they have promised Israel, I hope I get this right, a qualitative military edge in the region. And that includes they have F-35 fighters. So what does that mean, for Saudi having them? Does this still maintain Israel's edge? So many different things to consider as well. But the deal is, it's bringing together these two allies, Saudi and the US, in a much stronger way, because F-35s, it's not just about selling a country the plane or the technology. There is so much that comes around it. There is the infrastructure, there is the training. This is something that's going to go on for years and years and years, and it ties these two countries together for years.
This is fascinating because Trump also said the F-35 jets to Saudi, similar to Israel's. We heard that today in the press conference because we say that this is a whole different story. Michael, we'll get into this with you. Saudi will buy F-35 jets, so Donald Trump has made that pretty clear. As far as I'm aware, it's 48 F-35 jets that are on order. I don't know if that is the exact number, but it's what I've heard. Both Israel, Saudi should get top of the line F-35s. That's what Donald Trump said. I find this really interesting when it comes to policy shift. And I don't know, Michael, what your thoughts are on it.
I think it is interesting. I think that the Israeli Prime Minister must be wondering, I'm the one that's the Prime Minister at this time where I have lost our greatest ally to Saudi Arabia. And Donald Trump seems much more comfortable in public, in the Oval Office, with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia than he does with the Israeli Prime Minister. And I cannot imagine that he would ever chastise the Saudi Crown Prince the way that he has over the past couple of years, the Israeli Prime Minister. There is a shifting because it's not just Saudi Arabia and the US. It's Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Qatar and Bahrain. And for that matter, you could also add Kuwait and Oman. So there are so many Gulf countries now, all of them, that are siding and having explicit deals with the president and with his family. You don't hear too many deals with the Trump family happening in Israel at the moment. And I think that that shifting has to be concerning to the Israelis.
And what I also find interesting is, you know, the Crown Prince, he made it quite clear today when asked, we want peace for Israel, Palestinians too. He made that clear. And he said, I find it quite, Donald Trump said both countries will be happy when it comes to these F-35 fighter jets, whatever you read between the lines there. But I find it quite fascinating at the moment that we are seeing the shift. But also, interestingly enough, we talk about these jets, but they're going to take a long time to be built. I actually saw one today on the runway at the Dubai Air Show. These F-35 stealther jets are very impressive.
You're having a Top Gun moment.
I was having a Top Gun moment. I was actually fascinated by the technology.
Yeah.
And one, it's the training and how much work these people have to put into it. It's pretty incredible stuff. But also at the same time, you know, you mentioned the training there and how long this could take. And I think there is a concern that maybe they'll never come to light because the administration could change.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, will the Republicans stay in power after Trump goes? Will the Democrats come in? The current shift, as you mentioned earlier, seems to show the country is sort of swinging more to the left. I would like to see a deal like this continue just for the diplomacy, you know, just to keep the US and the region, you know, together. It would be quite a blow for the next administration to come in and put a block on all these deals and stop them. And I think it would be a blow to the diplomacy that I actually think Trump has done quite well in the region. I have to give credit where credit's due. So I think that would be a shame to kind of to come in and cut all of this.
And then let's talk a little bit about the normalizing of ties, because we know Donald Trump wants Israel and Saudi Arabia to normalize ties. And this was something that was brought up, and they said that they had had quite a lot of discussion about this very topic. Obviously, Donald Trump and the Saudi Crown Prince. The Saudi Crown Prince did praise Donald Trump for his work on world peace. And he also said something quite interesting. We want to be part of Abraham Accords, but also make sure to secure a path to a two-state solution. And this is something, you know, Crown Prince also says we want peace for Israel and the Palestinians, as I did say. And this is something that Saudi Arabia seemed to be determined about. And we've obviously seen that 20-point Donald Trump peace plan in place when it comes to Gaza. I wonder if Donald Trump will now be putting more pressure on Israel to make sure that Saudi will come to the table when it comes to the normalization of ties.
Yeah, if the Americans want this deal, this 20-point plan that Donald Trump has introduced, to be a true success, then he needs to make sure that there is a a just and lasting peace, and there also is first a solution, then normalization. That's what the Saudis have said. The Israelis need to make sure that they're getting something, and I think in the past, it would have always been that the Israelis would say that they wanted peace and that they wanted to be able to secure their borders. But we now know from what the Israeli Prime Minister has said, as well as ministers, is that they are 100% against a Palestinian state. But that's the red line in the sand for the Saudis. Yeah. The Saudis will do nothing with the Israelis until there is first a solution, then normalization. They need to know that we are well down the road towards Palestinian statehood before they start having that conversation. So what the war has done is it's presented everybody with a sense of urgency. And so the Saudis can say, we will sign up to the Abraham Accords, but 1, 2, and 3 have to happen. And it wasn't as clear as it is now. And I think it's an opportunity for the Israelis, if they really want to be secure and to have the comfort that they feel that they deserve, then they're going to have to step up to the plate, and they're also going to have to make sure that they give the Saudis what they need.
Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump said, good talk on Abraham Accords. That was something he mentioned in that Oval Office meeting with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. But a lot happening there. Thank you so much for your thoughts on that story. Let's move on to another one now. And US Congress has begun a vote on a bill forcing the government to release all Epstein files tonight. If the bill is passed, the Justice Department would need to publish the files within 30 days. Yesterday, President Trump said that he would sign the bill if it is passed. The Epstein files gained new momentum after more than 20,000 pages linked to the sex offender were published, and that was last week. Michael, let's start with you. So Trump has said he will sign the bill. We know that right now it's got to go through a few more stages until it gets to Donald Trump. But pretty much this is a huge U-turn from Donald Trump. Another one, we could put it in that context. Do you think Congress will vote on them being released?
So first of all, I think it's a U-turn from a political sense, where Donald Trump recognizes that there's still opportunity for him to not release everything. So what's happening is that he has come out finally, and he has said that I will support a bill that forces me to do what I could do today. Because he could call the Department of Justice, he could call the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and ask that the files be released today. Instead, he's saying that he supports Congress to have a vote, which then has to go to the Senate. And then if they pass it, it goes back to Donald Trump, and he can sign it or veto it. But because he's also requested that the Department of Justice launch an investigation into the Democrats that have been associated with Jeffrey Epstein, there may then be an opportunity when the bill comes back to Donald Trump, if it passes through the House and the Senate, then he can say, no, I can't sign it because there is an ongoing investigation.
I don't know what your thoughts are, Gemma, but I'm not quite sure that I would agree with that line, Michael, because I think Donald Trump has seen how politically damaging the releasing or not releasing of the Epstein files has been. And we've had this drip, drip, drip feed of the Epstein emails that have now come out. There was no smoking gun in it regarding Donald Trump. So far, no smoking gun. And he's always denied any links at all when it comes to the story and any wrongdoing. But I think Donald Trump has now realised that when he campaigned, his voter base, the MAGA base, was all on releasing these Epstein files, on being transparent. This hasn't happened. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a complete and utter loyalist to the MAGA movement, and Donald Trump has broken ranks to talk out about how the survivors deserve these files to be released. So I'm not sure. I think Donald Trump will go ahead and release them and try to clear his name. I'm not sure what both of you think about that argument.
If that's the case, then why not do it today? Why go through the vote in the House and then the vote in the Senate? I also think, sorry, I want to just say this as well, is that while he campaigned, he said he would release them.
Yeah.
And now that he's in a position to look at them, he's not releasing them. That might not indicate anything, but it looks bad.
Yep.
And from a political point of view, optics matter so much.
And that's where I think he realised that this is a necessary thing that needs to happen, because the optics do not look good. And it doesn't look good on the Epstein files. And I think everyone would agree with that. And I think that's why Donald Trump would probably go to release them. But he did say a lot of the reason they didn't want to release these files is because they wanted to protect the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and the victims. But obviously, they've been speaking out today. Gemma, Larry Summers, he's an interesting case. He's now stepped back from his public role. Tell us a little bit more about what's been going on with Larry Summers, a Democrat, Larry Summers is.
Yes, and we had Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is obviously, we spoke last week about taking, the fall for a lot of this. Larry Summers is not sort of a global name the way that the former Prince Andrew is. So I'm interested in who's falling or who's kind of catching a lot of flack in the Epstein files. It's very interesting to me. Now, he is the former Harvard University president and the former US Treasury Secretary under Clinton and very briefly Obama. Now, he has said he's going to step back from, quote, public commitments after his emails with Epstein were made public. Now, this doesn't mean he's going to step back from teaching at Harvard. But Michael made a really interesting point before the show, which was, because Summers wants to carry on teaching. You said if he goes to teach and it's a co-ed class, you wonder how many people in that class might get up and walk out. And Harvard does not want that. They've already gone through the whole having their funding, Trump threatening to take the funding away, all of this. So it's very interesting. He is not resigning. He is not leaving. He's stepping back from public commitments, but he still wants to continue teaching, and we'll see how that plays out. He has said he's deeply ashamed of his actions. Now, what these emails showed is that he was communicating with Epstein after the Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor. So even after that, he still carried on talking. And up to the day before Epstein's 2019 arrest for the alleged sex trafficking of minors. This is a very long relationship. Now, I don't want to make light of the situation at all, but the email exchange between Epstein and Summers is what the kids today would call absolute cringe. You have Epstein talking to Summers, who was 70 at the time. They're talking about women. They're talking about Summers' dating life. They're talking about Summers having a crush or a relationship on someone that he worked with. It is such a fascinating insight into how these two apparent titans of their worlds were communicating over email like something you would find on a teenage WhatsApp. So, it's the things that are coming out here are fascinating, but I'm so interested in seeing which people are going to be taking the fall.
And I think that's the question that a lot of people are currently asking at the moment. Who's going to take the fall? What more is going to come out in these Epstein files? But just a quick one, because we're out of time, but Prince Andrew, he's been seen riding his horse, apparently. Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the former prince, he's been seen riding his horse, and he's also been accused of being in hiding, but probably rightly so.
Yeah, and I think, as we did actually say this a few weeks ago, he's not going to hide. He's always maintained his innocence. He likely sees there's no reason for me to hide away. He's out there, he's going to be riding his horse through Windsor Great Park as he sees fit. This is someone who's evidently, from what we know from sources, has never been told no. So he's not really going to start listening to that word now.
Lack of self-awareness. You have to be able to read the room, and in his case, read the world. And everybody is 100% interested in the Epstein files.
Yeah.
The former Prince Andrew is the closest that anybody can get to somebody who would have been a guilty culprit. And yet he doesn't seem to have the awareness to understand that it would probably be best for him not to be hidden away for 7 weeks, as has been the case recently, but to maybe go away for a year or two and to keep an incredibly low profile. But as you said, he is somebody who has not been told no too often, and that just doesn't seem to be in his way of thinking.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on the latest on the Epstein files there. Let's move on to another story now. And a music persona created by AI has topped the US Billboard charts for the first time. The AI country artist named Breaking Rust has landed the #1 spot with the viral track Walk My Walk, which has over 3.5 million streams on Spotify. It comes as a study from a French streaming service. Deezer has revealed that 97% of people can't tell the difference between real music and AI-generated songs. Oh, wow, there is a whole story in this. But Gemma, how has the song made it to the top of the charts? And I must admit something, my favourite genre of music is country music.
You love your country music.
I love my country music.
You were telling us.
So I'm not too happy about this, but go on, tell us.
So, yeah, it's reached the #1 spot on Billboard's country digital song sales charts. Now, there's a few reasons why it's got there, OK? So it's had over 3.5 million streams on Spotify. It went viral. It was featured in a lot of TikToks. It was featured on social media. So, you know, this kind of always gets the ball rolling these days, which really helped its visibility. There's a lot of strong branding here. You know, you see the video. It's a cowboy, you know, the lone, the rugged outlaw. They've really leaned into everything that the layperson would think country music, you know, is about. The visuals, you know, you've got the open road, you've got the dust, you've got the grit. So they've really kind of they've really dug into that.
As I walk through the desert on a horse with no name.
Exactly.
You're quoting America? That's from the 70s. I'm impressed.
Before AI took over.
Before
yes.
AI took over, yeah.
And obviously it got a lot of press coverage. So then you'll have people streaming it to kind of see what all the fuss is about. So they're all the reasons that it's reached #1. It's very interesting to me that this study has found that most people can't tell the difference between AI and real songs. Now, what's interesting as well is AI has been used in the music industry for about 10 years properly now. Paul McCartney's used it to isolate John Lennon's voice for a Beatles track, Then and Now. This was in 2023. One would probably argue that that's kind of, you know, more out in the open, you know. And then Timbaland used it to collaborate with the notorious B.I.G., who passed away. So AI in the music industry isn't new, but creating entirely new personas, it's very Black Mirror.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because like you say, AI has been used before for those particular reasons, which I think is kind of acceptable. But Michael, I feel like this is quite a sad moment, not just for country music, but for all artists, because if you think about music, especially country music, if you want to stick with the theme, it's all about a story about your life. It's all about talking about a narrative. And that's something that's really important to the likes of Dolly Parton and all the famous country singers. It's creating that vision, that life, talking about your experiences, helping people listening to it. It's lost its creativity, and also it's taking away from people's livelihoods.
So from an artist's point of view, I would agree. It's depressing and it's pathetic and it's unfortunately disappointing. But from a fan or a listener's point of view, you could argue that I'm getting what I need as a listener. There's something about the lyrics that's playing to my sensibilities and it resonates with me. But it can't be a surprise because of the way that sampling has been used for decades now and the way that auto-tunes is there. And over the past 10 years, you've had so many artists who would be able to stream something that they did themselves directly onto the platform. And they would just have one song. Or maybe they would have 3 songs over the course of a year. Whereas back in the day, when you're quoting the band America from the early 70s, you're coming out with an album. You have to have 46, 48 minutes, probably anywhere from 8 to 12 songs. And that requires, first of all, there wasn't the technology that there is today. And it goes to your point where you do have then the journey and the biography or the autobiographical approach where you're telling a story that, you know, hopefully also resonates. But the way that you can prompt AI, and we all know this, you can come up with something that is going to work and it's going to make sense for a lot of listeners. But I don't think people should be surprised because I think it's the way that the technology has been going for quite some time.
I find it absolutely fascinating. And you are right when you say that, because remember in the olden days when we got a tape, and you know, your favourite thing was to get out the graphics of the tape, all the pictures of it, and look at actually
read the lyrics.
Of the songs.
Yeah.
That was, but everything's changed since now. Do you think it comes at a time when AI investment is now coming under increased scrutiny, or do you think people are actually thinking we need to invest in it, we're just going to be left behind?
So I think there's a couple of things at play. There's, from the AI point of view, there's how many people are going to lose their jobs. That's a big concern that everybody has. And from an investment point of view, there's so much talk right now that there's an AI bubble. And I've heard so many different sides of that as well, right? And that concerns people. I think the criticism, there's two criticisms that get leveled against AI, which is it's going to take jobs. And then the other one is that there isn't enough transparency. So if it matters to you as a listener that you're listening to an AI-generated song, then you want it to be said, this is an AI-generated song, or this is an AI-generated image, right? Fake news. And I think that that doesn't happen enough where there isn't enough transparency. So people will maybe feel like they've been duped because their favorite genre is country music, and I just found out that it's, you know, generated by AI and it's not real. That can be, it can make you question what it is that technology is able to do today. If a song that, you know, touched my heart turned out to be done by completely technology, it can be incredibly disappointing.
Yeah, music is something that people have such a relationship with, right? Same with literature. When I read that, you know, people are just putting prompts into, AI to write books for them, that horrifies me. I want to hear an author's voice, you know, and these are things that, well, it's art, it's our connection to art. So if AI is coming for art, and I remember the Apple advert, you know, that everyone was up in arms about, where they condensed absolutely everything, they crushed everything. And so many people came out saying, well, you're just crushing art, you know, and this is what it feels like, that steamroller again. So I do wonder if you mess with people's art, whether there's going to be quite a strong reaction.
It'll be interesting to see going to the future if people move to trying to have more authentic music as a backlash to AI. But thank you so much for your thoughts on that. And finally, we've reached that point in the show where Gemma and Michael share their stories of the day. And Michael, yours are actually about flying taxis in Dubai. Can you tell us a little bit more about these?
So I know this is close to your heart,
Yes.
because you've been saying, where are the flying cars? Well, here they are.
I actually went to see a flying car. I went to go and see one of them a couple of weeks ago. It was great in Dubai.
Were you thoroughly impressed?
I was thoroughly impressed. However, I did think to myself, there's a little way to go.
So
I was impressed, but I did
But you're not ready to get in one
not
quite
ready to
yet.
get in one. No.
according to the videos that we're seeing now and the story that accompanied it, Jabri Aviation in the US is working with the UAE to have 4 what they're calling vertiports. So what will happen is that for the price of an Uber Black,
Yes.
you will be able to fly from one vertiport to another. And the way it will be something as simple as going to either the Uber app or another app, still to be determined. But you go to the Uber app and you book a trip, and the car will come and pick you up, and they'll drop you off at one vertiport, and then you can transfer and travel to your destination. And they say for the cost of an Uber Black, that's all it will be. Now, the gentleman who is being interviewed for this particular story has actually been a test pilot for F-35s, which interesting, we were talking about them earlier. And he says that they're incredibly maneuverable. They can fly as fast as 200 miles an hour. They have the 6 propellers. They'll have 4 seats for passengers, so you could be sharing with others. And it is going to be in Dubai, to your point, as early as next year.
I do find one thing is when I went to have a look at this, and I saw a few of them at the air show today, and I did see a test flight of one of them, the technology is absolutely fascinating. Yeah. Like, Gemma, I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but when I got into it and I felt it, and you can see how far we've got, it's quite amazing that it could be next year.
And it's so battery powered, so it doesn't have the noise of a helicopter. It's much quieter. It's going to fly anywhere from 1,500 to 3,000 feet. And it's going to cut a 45-minute trip in Dubai down to about 10 minutes.
I'm not. No, you're not going to get me in one of those. No, I'm not. I need a pilot in front of me. You might get me in one if there was, like a pilot, but no, I'm not getting in one of those. Not yet.
And I think some people are a little bit terrified of heights. And I do think, but this is an interesting movement that we are seeing, because like I said, we're seeing more and more of these come onto the market. And Gemma, let's move on to your story now. And yours is about this year's Cambridge Dictionary Word of the Year. And it's all been revealed. Can you tell us what it is?
I enjoy a word of the year and a colour of the year.
Yeah.
I love all this stuff at the end of the year when they start rounding things up. So Cambridge Dictionary's word of the year is parasocial.
Okay.
Now, if you're not sure what parasocial is, it's this connection that we have, or we feel that we have, with someone who's in the public eye. They don't know us, we don't know them, but we think we know them. So celebrities, even politicians, influencers, mainly celebrities and influencers. This is where the term was actually coined in 1956, so it's been around for quite a long time. But now we form so many parasocial relationships with people we see on our phones, people we see on the TV, that we think that we know them. Now, the biggest example of this is Taylor Swift getting engaged to Travis.
Kelsey.
Kelsey.
Yeah, TNT forever. I'm actually going on a party this weekend, and we all, sort of have to dress up as Taylor Swift. So that's very exciting.
This is a party for a 6-year-old, right?
No, this is going to be grown women. So I'll send you some photos. And it's sort of saying that the amount of fans who felt personally involved in her engagement, because they buy her albums, they've been to her concerts, they read about them online, that their reactions were oversized. So, parasocial is the word of the year. And I think we all, to some extent, can get involved in parasocial relationships. Not to the extent that you become some stalkerish fan or anything like that. But we can all sort of think, oh, I know that person because that influencer's always on my phone and they like the same things that I like. I think we can all be guilty of it.
Can I tell you something? I completely agree with that. And I must admit, I love the idea of you going out as Taylor Swift, because I love Taylor Swift. I've loved her since her first country album. I still love her. And I felt very invested when she announced she got engaged. And the reason being is because we've been through all the breakup albums. We've been through all the heartbreak. We've followed her all on our journey. Her Eras tour is everywhere. She's reached all the different generations. But at the same time, it's creepy, isn't it, Michael?
So it is, but for me, it's not anything new. There's the Stephen King novel called Misery, which came out in 1987, which is essentially that, where the author crashes his car and he's rescued by, it turns out to be, a woman who's an incredible fan of his. And she will not let him go. And I think because she has this relationship with him where she thinks she knows him because she's read his work. But of course, she doesn't know him. And I can remember reading that in the mid-'80s, and there were moments where I had to stop because of the graphic nature of what was going on, because of how she was treating him. And so I don't think it's anything new. I think we just experience it much more regularly now, as you said, because of social media. We see, you can see through Twitch streaming, you can see some people's daily lives, everything that they do. And it is, I think, a situation that develops where people genuinely feel that they know you because they see everything that you're doing during the day.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. I always feel like I know the Kardashians.
I think you could be an honorary Kardashian.
I would love to be an honorary
Kardashian.
If you need a sister, call me. But I just want to say thanks to our guest today, Managing Director of This.Is.Dubai, Michael Jabri Pickett, and columnist and correspondent Gemma White. And that's all from us on W News Extra. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and, of course, follow us on X, GNT with Tom Burgess-Watson is coming up next. Goodbye and thank you.